The National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence recently released a preliminary draft of its most recent NIST cybersecurity practice guide on implementing a zero trust architecture. Joining us to talk about the updated guidance and this draft guide and how it will affect public and private organizations is Sean Frazier, Federal Chief Security Officer at Okta. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Wyatt, always good to be with you, my friend.
Well, following the release of the NCCOE guidance, what do you see as the most significant impact for organizations, both in the public and private sectors?
So I think this is an important milestone for zero trust in the world. Yeah, public and private. We started out with the NIST putting together the 800-207 document around zero trust, and that was more the kind of the what and the why. So what is zero trust and why should I care? And what I think a lot of agencies are struggling with or have been struggling with is the how. How do I get there? And that's why the NCCOE have put together these practice guides, and they've done a bunch of them in the past to kind of do the same thing, to really explain how technologies get wired together, how they're useful, how you can kind of carve out things that are prescribed within the pillars of zero trust. Obviously, we're near and dear to our heart is identity, which is pillar one, not by an accident. So that's kind of where you start with zero trust, but it's very prescriptive. So it allows organizations to come in and say, okay, this is how I tie all these things together. And some of these things I may already have, some of these things I may have to go kind of procure, but it's a real roadmap to how to get there.
And what would you say has made zero trust implementation such a challenge for the public sector? And how do you see the agencies evolving their approach to the zero trust framework?
I think the biggest thing is to think about zero trust as a mindset shift and not a product, right? So if you think about it as this is something that I can do to kind of bolster and build security holistically into my organization, and this was what the practice guide kind of outlines, which is there's some technology you already have that probably already fits into this model. And I think if you shift away from thinking of this as yet another unfunded mandate. So here's something I'm not getting money for, but I have to do and layer on top of all the 100 other things I have to do and think about it as integrating into what you already have, then I think it gets you most of the way there. Because again, you're kind of opening up the aperture of your mind and thinking about, okay, this is thinking differently and building security holistically into everything that I do.
Well, I think there's general agreement that NIST recognizes that identity's foundational role in zero trust guidance. But I'm curious, what are some of the key ways that agencies should be thinking about identity within the zero trust framework?
So the good thing is none of this stuff is happening in a vacuum. So as agencies are looking at things like the NIST guidance, they're looking at things like the OMB guidance around M2209, which talks about zero trust specifically, but also talks about identity as being critical infrastructure, talks about things like secure single sign-on and making sure you have that as kind of not only a security construct, but also a usability construct to make it easier for users to do their work. And things like phishing resistant factors. So being able to leverage the past of smart cards, so the CAC and the PIV that everyone knows and loves, but also embracing the future of WebAuthn, which is kind of the next generation of the same thing. So again, all this stuff is kind of happening together, which is, to me, is exciting. Because a lot of times in government, we kind of get into our stovepipes and we do one over here and one over there. And now these things are all kind of interrelated and tying together. And it's actually pretty cool.
Well, and then lastly, identity, of course, has broad application within some of the more recent federal mandates around agency security postures and also improved digital experiences for citizens. So I'd like to ask, can you share how identity impacts both these outcomes and what agencies can do to think about them holistically?
It's super critical because, and it really plays a lot into that user experience, because nothing happens till somebody tries to log into something to get access to data. So if your experience is bad from the front door, from the first interaction to an application, chances are, and we live in this world now where we're kind of accustomed to everything being at our fingertips and everything happens in 2 clicks and 10 seconds. And if we can't deliver that level of service and we can't deliver that level of transparency while also providing strong security, then agencies struggle, organizations struggle. If it takes a user 10 minutes to figure out how to log into something, even though you're making it secure, then that's not a good approach. The best approach is to make sure that it's, again, 2 clicks in 10 seconds, and also providing the strongest security possible.
Well, all great points. Well, Sean Frazier, thank you so much, as always, just to stop in and share some of your fresh insights on this latest guidance document and kind of where the federal government is going with it.
Absolutely. Always good to see you, Wyatt.